Hi, and welcome to Stamp with Ginny. Today I'm going to share with you how to get started with the Friends Are Like Seashell bundle. We're going to be learning 3 different ways to use this bundle along with the Seashells 3D embossing folder. This bundle is a lot of fun to work with, and I'm hoping these tips and tricks will give you quick and easy ways to be successful. So let me set this aside and I'll show you how to get started. I'm going to start with basic stamping on this. I've cut the image out with my die, and I've got my 3 stamps here ready to go for these 3 sections. Now, since these are photopolymer, you can line these up fairly easy. I'm going to slide this down a little bit so that I can see it better, and I'm hoping you can see that still too. And I'm going to line that up with the edges and then stamp. 1, 2, 3, and lift. So I can repeat that with all the images. 1, 2, 3. This is a little less accurate than the next way I'm going to show you, simply because you've got to make sure you get all 3 nicely lined up. There we go. So you can stamp the image like that, and then you're going to set it into your 3D embossing folder and line it up. And I like to line it up here with the top on the back side because it's a little easier where you can see everything and it fits in the grooves. I'm going to run that through my Stampin' Cut and Emboss, and let's see what it looks like. Okay, I'm going to take off plate 4. Since this is a 3D embossing folder, I only need plate 1 and plate 4. And you can see that by right here. I've used my Sharpie in yellow in order to highlight that. The Sharpie will be permanent and it'll draw your eye to the sandwich combinations for you. And there we go. I've got this beautiful image, and I'm hoping you can see the depth on that. So that's the first way you can use this bundle. Just simple stamping onto the cut die. The second way to do this is to use your Stamparatus. So I'm going to open my Stamparatus up here, and I am going to place the shell onto the platform. I'm going to ink this up, and I am going to stamp onto my grid paper and lift. Now what that stamping does is give me an image to work with. So let me move this over a little bit. At this point, I'm going to bring in my mask. This is simply the negative outline from my die that I cut. And I am going to line this up with the edge of the die. It's going to stay once I add things. I've got this done a little oversized so that I've got plenty of room for my magnet, and I'm going to take that insert that came out of this negative, lay it in, ink my shell up, and then stamp. There we go. So I've got a nice clean image, and I can repeat that process for each individual image using the mask. So that's the second way you can use this bundle. My favorite way is to use the die. I'm going to use the smooth side, not the cutting side, and my stamps. And I'm going to hold that in my hand and lay those stamps right into the holes. They will pop right in, and by holding it up like this, you can kind of feel them settle so that you know you've got a nice, secure look and fit to your images. There we go, I've got that. So the next thing I'm going to do is bring in the piece of cardstock that I'm going to use. I happen to be using this quarter sheet of basic white, and I'm lining it up here in the corner. And I'm doing that because I want to be able to find my spot easily each and every time. And then I'm going to lay my die right here on the top. And I'm not worried about the little pieces because I'm planning on cutting these out. But if you wanted to use the whole die as one section, you'd want to cut your paper a little larger, more like a card front size. And I'm going to bring this plate down and simply press and lift. I'm going to pull that cardstock off and the die, ink up my image, and then I can stamp here so that I know where those stamps are going to be. each and every time. And I love the Stamparatus because you can use that a second time if you've missed a section of the image. Oop, I missed the little one here too. Make sure you use the heel of your hand or your whole hand because this is a large section to cover. Now that I have that done, I can place my cardstock over the top of this, and that would also allow you, if you're doing different size pieces, to place them over the image you want. Ink this up, and then close it and press and remove that image for a beautiful stamping presentation, and that will fit right into those dies, as you can see there. The next step I like to do is the embossing. Now I find embossing the larger piece easier because I have more area of cardstock to hold on to and move things around. I'm going to set this inside, and I'm using the top of my folder right here to line up those shells, making sure I've got everything in its place. And I need to slide this over here on the top shell to line that shell up because I moved. There we go. I think that looks nice. And I'm going to run this through my embossing folder. Now, when using the 3D embossing folder, once again, I'm going to use plate 1 and plate 4. So I'm going to set that on there, set number 4 on the top, and run this through my Stampin' Cut Emboss. Okay, so there you see a beautifully rich embossed look, and I am now ready to work on the die cutting. Okay, I'm going to make the sandwich for the die cutting now, so I need to use my thin dies, 1, 2, and 3. So I've got 1, I'm going to add 2, place my cutting plate, because we don't want to cut into those adapters. Line up my die onto the image, place the cutting plate number 3 on top, and run it through my machine. Here we go. Oh my gosh, I can't tell you how quick and easy this is. When you're using the Stamparatus and this technique, things come out consistently and they're just a joy. So I've got that removed from the die, and I'm hoping you can see how lovely that image is. So there you go. Those are my 3 types of stamping with this bundle, and I hope these tips and tricks help you enjoy using this suite of products. We have our basic stamping after we've cut it out with the die. Then we have our stamping using the Stamparatus and the mask, and of course the final method, which is my favorite, placing those stamps together on to the Stamparatus and then stamping it directly onto the cardstock, embossing, and then cutting out. Once again, I find embossing first and then cutting makes my life easier. If you'd like any of these products, feel free to stop by my online store. You can get there from my blog, Stamp with Jini. Thanks for joining me.